I do want to start talking about something that I know you're an evangelist on, which is Bitcoin. It's been going crazy recently. It's all in the news. And I know that you recently had the Winklevoss twins on the Capital University podcast. But when did you get involved with Bitcoin? How did you initially hear about it? And what's your predictions on the future of Bitcoin?
Yeah. So, kind of 2016, I think, I heard about it in 2014. I did nothing, when I was at Facebook, again, stupid mistake. In 2016, I had a kid that I'd previously met. He was actually a high schooler when I met him. He was now a freshman, I think, in college. He basically sat me down and he was like, "Hey, you got to pay attention to this thing." He didn't pitch me on Bitcoin. What he pitched me on was cryptocurrency mining. So this whole idea of you
Yep.
buy a computer, you plug it in, and it basically generates cash flow. Right. And so my father had grown up and spent a bunch of time in the data center business. I understood that business pretty well. When I saw mining, it was data centers on steroids. And I said, look, cool, I'll take some money and I'll basically try it. And one of the best things I've done in my life is always when I see something that's interesting, I want to play with it. I want to try it. I just, it might be
Yep.
small first, but like, let me get hands-on experience with it. So did that very quickly, was like, oh my God, this is going to be massive. And I became pretty convinced that like the entire industry would be worth paying attention to. Over then like a 6-month period, I went from, hey, this is going to be interesting, to then I basically said, I'm going to double and triple down on this, to the point where I'm only going to focus on this for some period of time. And so really for the last like 2.5 years or so, all I've done is just focus on it. I've got a very strong kind of conviction thesis around it. And one of the great investing lessons I've learned over time is concentration builds wealth and diversification protects it. And I think that we've constantly told people over and over and over again, diversify, diversify, diversify.
Yep.
What I actually think people need to do is you need to diversify your income streams, but on the investing side, you need to concentrate your investments, right? If you're managing a stock portfolio and you have 50 stocks, you don't have 50 good ideas,
Yeah.
right? That just means you frankly haven't done the work to have high conviction around 5 or 10 ideas.
Yep.
And so I think that that's one of the key pieces is I really kind of had the conviction to make a big move. And so, it's public knowledge now, but in December of 2018, I took 50% of my net worth, put it into Bitcoin at the bottom of the market. Obviously, when you're buying at sub $3,500 and now it's, trading at $16,000, $17,000, pretty good. But the second investing lesson I've learned is the best investors in the world, they press their winners harder than anybody, right? So they cut their losses faster than anybody, but they also press their winners harder. And so even though I kind of made that investment decision and it's played out well, I've continued to kind of double and triple down on that investment as it continued to rise. I'm still buying Bitcoin, in the modern environment. And the reason being that if you liked it at 3,500 and you liked it at 5,000 and 10,000 and 15,000, well, if you have this long-term conviction, you frankly don't care what price you're buying it, right? You're essentially just dollar cost averaging into an asset where you've got high conviction. And if you hold it for a long period of time, it should play out well if you're right. And so that's kind of the investment thesis I've had with Bitcoin.
Love that. What do you think is all the hype right now, the last 3 months or 2 months or so, when it's, it was at 10,000, now it's the last week or 2 weeks, and now it's at 17,000. What has caused that? And what should potential investors know about this time when it comes to Bitcoin?
It's really hard to pinpoint one thing, right? I always talk about Bitcoin in this kind of weird way of, if you imagine everyone in the world is on like a spectrum, and some people are like all in, they're highly convicted like me, and basically they've already crossed the finish line, if you will,
Yep.
right? And then there's some people who like never even heard of Bitcoin, and they're on the far end of the other spectrum. Well, every time one of these events or data points happens, everyone just kind of takes a step to the right. Right. So, okay, Paul Tudor Jones wants to buy Bitcoin. Okay, everyone takes a step to the right. So if you had never heard of it, maybe now you've heard of it. If you had just heard about it, now you start doing educational research, right? If you've done educational research, maybe you come convinced, hey, I should actually buy some. Maybe hey, I should buy some. Now you actually go and do it, right? So everyone kind of takes a step to the right. Fidelity, step to the right.
Yep.
This company, MicroStrategy or Square, they buy Bitcoin and put it on their balance sheet. Everyone steps to the right. And so every data point kind of just moves people along in the funnel. What I think is happening right now on a macro basis is it's really simple. The government is printing lots and lots of money. And so people are looking for inflation hedge assets. They ran to Bitcoin, gold, real estate, et cetera, over kind of this pandemic. And at the same time that occurred, the Bitcoin incoming daily supply got cut in half. So every 4 years, basically, there's this programmatic thing that happens where Bitcoin gets cut by 50%. And so Bitcoin, at the end of last year, there was 1,800 Bitcoin a day that was coming into the circulating supply. Today, there's 900. So you have a supply shock. At the same time, demand is increasing. And so economics 101, if you have a fixed supply asset and demand increases, the US dollar price is going to go up, right? And so I think that it's pretty obvious kind of structurally why it's happening. The big debate is what happens in the future. Does
Yep.
demand continue to increase? Does it just kind of plateau? Does it decrease? Right? Everyone's got their own opinion, but ultimately the market will figure that one out.
What are you most looking forward to over the next 12 months with everything that you have going on in your life?
Bitcoin is going to be something to behold. I think it is going to go on this breathtaking run through the end of next year. In history of the asset, it's about 10, or 11, 12 years old now. It's basically had a couple of these really big boom cycles and then
Yep.
massive crashes. So it'll go up, 10, 15, 20, 25x in price in a very short period of time. And then it'll have this like nasty 80+% correction historically. I
Yep.
think, again, it's always hard to tell how high it will go, but I do think that from a macro and structural perspective, like we're headed into one of those very significant price increases through the end of next year. And then there will be a really nasty price decline, but that's been my main focus for the last 2 years, is kind of preparing for this.
Yep.
And so I think a lot about like, you kind of want to see the thesis through. So we got about 12 months left here, and I think it'll be pretty cool to watch.